Okay, so this is my current sourdough bread recipe. We need 700 mils of water. We need 100 grams of starter. There we go. And it does pass the float test. I'm going to put in a tablespoon of malt extract. You can use a bit of molasses, you can use a bit of honey, you don't have to use anything. I just like the slight difference in taste it gives, but also it gives a great colour to the crust. So something with a bit of single chain or double chain carbohydrate in it, sugar. So just give that a mix around, and then re-zero and add a kilo of flour. The more experienced you are, the more of non-white flour you can use. The less experienced you are, I'd aim for about 10% wholemeal or rye or spelt. Just some white because I've got some left over in the tub. I'm going to use 10% wholemeal, so I'm going to use 100 grams of wholemeal, and the rest is going to be white. There's a little bit more. And I'm making this at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon with the idea that I'll put it in the fridge tonight, and if I'm lucky I'll be able to shape it tomorrow and bake it tomorrow. There's 1,000 grams or a kilo of flour, and then I'm just going to find my spoon, mix that up, and so it's starting to come together. I just want to make sure all the flour is mixed in, and I'm just also at this point going to get an idea about what hydration it's going to end up as. It's calculated as 70% hydrated, so that is 700 mils of water and a kilo of flour, or 1,000 grams of flour. But sometimes flour needs a little bit more water, and sometimes it needs a little bit less water, depending on the type of flour that you use. So I'm looking more for consistency than I am for an exact percentage by weight. So I'm just making sure that all the flour has been mixed in, and I reckon 75% kind of just starts to stick to your hands, but you can scrub it off and it holds its shape in the tub. So this is probably in that ballpark. Good, there you go. So this is what it looks like. It kind of feels like new Play-Doh if you've got kids, or if you just like Play-Doh. And it's kind of sticking to my hand, but it's not really gloopy. And that's the dough mix. Now I'm going to leave this for half an hour, and then I'm going to mix the salt in. And this half an hour is the autolysis phase. Strictly speaking, autolysis is without the starter or the yeast, but I found it doesn't make a difference whether you add that or not. And I want the starter to be getting going and starting to break down some of that flour. But because I don't want to forget the salt, what I tend to do is sprinkle it on the surface, and then it's in, so I definitely won't remember it, because I've made plenty of loaves where I've forgotten the salt. The loaves look great, they taste terrible. I'm adding 2% of the dry weight of salt, so it was 1,000 grams, so 2% is 20 grams. Seems a lot when you put it in, but then if you look at commercial bread, which has got 4 times this amount of salt, you realise it's probably not that much per slice. So that just goes on top. There we go. Salt's on top, and I just leave that covered so no nothing falls in it by accident. And I'll come back in half an hour and just give the salt a mix in. Right, I'm back from the school run, half an hour after we had the dough autolysing with the salt sprinkled on top, and now I'm going to mix all the salt in. And look, you can already see that the dough has taken on a different consistency. It looks now a bit more like dough. So I'm just going to mix in all the salt, make sure it's all really nice and mixed in, and the dough feels a little bit stiff. We definitely don't want to add any more flour if we can help it, because that's essentially now a contaminant. It's okay if you want to add a bit more water, and in fact I think this dough needs a bit more water. I want it to feel, and it's, a little bit of water goes a long way at this stage, so it doesn't have to be much. Maybe not even 10 mils. I just tend to wet my hands a bit and then put the very wet hands into the dough, and that's enough to mix it around, because I just want it to be stretchy enough, not too stiff, but it should remain together in the shape you've kind of made out of it. So look, you can already see it's kind of almost got a life of its own. It's not rising at all now, it's just fermenting. What I'm going to do is leave this to ferment, so double in size. If that happens by this evening, then I'll shape the dough. If it doesn't, I will retard the dough in the fridge overnight and then have another go at getting it to double in size tomorrow. Well, look, I don't normally do this at this stage, but look, it's already started to maintain a bit of structure. It's already started to form those kind of gluten strands. People might say, I sort of see this technique as being no need, but in fact, I guess people could argue this bit is a little bit of a need. I tend to do one stretch and fold, so this, rotate it 90 degrees, shake it out, try not to let it rip, fold it on itself. So this stretch and fold method that some people talk about, shake it out in the pot, try not to get it to rip. So it's just starting to rip here, don't have that if we can avoid it. Fold it on itself, just 3 times, so a turn, a turn, a turn. This I'm just going to leave now until it starts to double in size, but you can see it's already started to look more like an active, useful dough. And my hands are covered, but the dough mostly is staying in the pot and not on my hands, and any little bits just leave it back in there. So we'll leave that and we'll come and check on it later. Just to give you an idea of what's happening during the fermentation process, I sort of check on it every kind of couple of hours. We're 4 hours after the mixing of the salt into the dough. So here it is. Here you can see a little air bubble that's formed and just popped, and the dough looks pretty similar, and it doesn't look like it's changed in size. It's still just fermenting away, but it's got some aeration but not a huge amount. I'm just going to show you what it looks like and what it feels like. I tend to just do a couple of stretches and folds once during the bulk fermentation process. It doesn't matter when you do it, I don't think, and it probably doesn't even matter if you do it, but I'm just for academic purposes going to show you what the dough looks like. So I'm going to wet my hands, just so that this dough doesn't stick to me, and grab it around the sides. Now look how stretchy it is now compared to, and I can get a pretty good height compared to what it was when the salt was added. And this is really doing nothing to the dough, just letting it do its thing. I mean, that is really stretchy, really nice feel dough now, and it's nice, and you kind of get the impression there's a sort of a silkiness to it. So given that we're doing the stretch and fold, only one more, because I've done 3. It's just started to tighten up again as I've done that 3rd stretch and fold. And that's it, and just leave it. I won't do another one, but other than to show you what it feels like maybe in 2 hours' time. It's probably not going to rise it by double by the time I go to bed in 3 hours. So this will go in the fridge before I go to bed. I'll take it out in the morning or at lunchtime when I get home, let it continue to rise, and during the course of the afternoon and evening I'll shape it and hopefully bake it, and I'll let you watch that process too. Okay, so let's just see what's happened to our dough. I left it in the fridge overnight, and it's now midday. So it's risen nicely. It's still not completely there, but it's risen nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in, put it on the bench, and let it warm up, and it will rise to the top of the tub, and then we'll shape it. Fingers crossed.